In this video, you're going to learn how to build an EigenCloud service using DevKit, our new unified first-party CLI toolkit. DevKit is the fastest and easiest way to get started building EigenCloud services. You could think of it like Foundry, but for building verifiable off-chain services. DevKit gives you opinionated defaults that work out of the box, local first deployment for rapid iteration, and a clear path from proof of concept to testnet and mainnet deployment. Now let's get started writing some code. To get started, go to the GitHub repo for the CLI. Here we're going to see everything laid out that we're going to be covering in the video. We're going to have all the different documentation for installation, prerequisites, and all the commands that we're going to be running to build, test, and experiment with the DevKit. So the first thing you'd like to do is probably to go ahead and install the CLI. A couple of different options. We have a quick install as well as a manual installation. Once you've installed the CLI, you should have this DevKit command available in your terminal. And let's go ahead and test that out. Here we can run DevKit and see all the different options that we're going to be able to work with. The option that we're going to be running today, for the most part, is going to be AVS. AVS is short for Autonomous Verifiable Service. It's essentially any service that is built on EigenCloud. And we are going to be creating a new project. We're going to be testing it out, and then we're going to be updating it to be something slightly different, just to kind of show you the whole workflow. So if we go down here to the key commands, you'll see that we have a handful of different commands that we can work with for the DevKit AVS starting point, and a slight description for each one. We're going to be doing create, we're going to be building, we're going to be testing, and we're going to be calling. And we're also going to be running a local network. So we're going to be having the AVS part, the business logic mainly being off-chain code written in Go, and then we're going to have a local network that we're going to build against. With that being said, let's go ahead and create our AVS by using DevKit AVS create. I'll call this my service. Now that our service is created, we'll go ahead and change into that new directory, and we'll open this up in our text editor. Over here, you can see all the different files and folders that were created for us. The main things that we're going to be looking in today are going to be the CMD folder with main.go and main.test.go. Main.go is going to hold all of our business logic. You also have a config folder here with a configuration about different environments. Right now we have a DevNet environment under contexts. This will have things like your RPC URL as well as your chain ID. The other, I would say, area to consider looking at that we're going to be needing to work with is the environment variables. We're going to be copying this and creating a new .env file, so let's go ahead and do that. And what we need to do is set our fork URLs for Sepolia ETH as well as base Sepolia. So you can go to Alchemy or QuickNode or any of these RPC providers and grab one of those and set that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off screen, and I'll be right back. All right, now that our environment variables are set, we can walk through the main.go file. The only two functions that you really need to worry about right now, and for the most part really, are going to be validate task as well as handle task. The handle task function is where your main business logic goes for your AVS. The validate task is a function that is run before handle task is called to make sure that you have whatever validation that you would like to be checked before moving on to handling the task. So with that being said, we can go ahead and look actually at this code here, and you'll see that there's really nothing going on here. All we're doing is creating an empty array of bytes and returning those. The one thing to note when you're building anything here, that the result needs to be an array of bytes. This is going to be a consistent type that you need to work with. But all of the logic here can be up to you, obviously. All right, so with that being said, let's go ahead and test this out. We're going to first go ahead and run DevKit AVS test, and you'll see that we have a passing test. Now, what we could do would be to actually run the local network and deploy this to the local network. But let's make some modifications. Let's build out something a little different, and then we're going to run the local network and test it out in that way. So what we want to do is we want to build like a very basic Oracle service that takes in a token ID and gets the price of a token, a cryptocurrency, something like Bitcoin or Ethereum. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to modify main.go and main.test.go. And the code that we're going to be working with is going to be in this DevKit Oracle repo that I'm going to share here. And it's going to be in this command or cmd / main.go and main.test.go. All right, so I'll go ahead and copy this main.go here. And the only thing that we're really doing in this code base here is that we're taking in a token ID and we are calling this endpoint from CoinGecko and we're returning the value, which is the price. So nothing too complicated going on there. And then in our test, we're going to test out a couple of different tokens. We're going to be testing out Bitcoin and Ethereum. All right, so we've made our updates to our main and our main test. I can run devkit abs test again and see if this works. Looks like we have passing tests, but instead of essentially not doing anything, we are going to be returning a token price. So Ethereum, 4280, and Bitcoin, 111 at the moment. And you'll notice that there's a failed test. This is because we passed in an invalid token ID. So that was part of our test where we are fetching this invalid token, by the way, if you see that. All right, so the test is running. What we want to do now is actually deploy this on a local network. So let's go ahead and do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the documentation here. There's two ways to do this. You can run devkit abs devnet start. This will run everything. Now this takes a long time because we are going to be really doing quite a bit here. We're going to be creating the network. We're going to be deploying the ABS, setting up the operators, and on top of that, we're also going to be running our main business logic from our Go files. But what I would like to do, and something that you can also do instead, is kind of set those up in separate terminals. So you can run the devnet, and then you can make your code changes and deploy those separately or run those separately. That way you don't have to go through that whole process. And the way that we do that is we're going to be calling devkit abs devnet start, but we're going to be passing in a flag. So if I go to my terminal here and I run help, you can see that we have this skip abs run. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to run devkit abs devnet start skip abs run because we want to run the abs separately in another terminal so that way we can make changes. Okay, it looks like our local devnet has been set up completely and successfully. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go and we're going to run our ABS. And we're going to do this using devkit abs run. As you see here in our docs, it says start off-chain ABS infrastructure. This means anytime we have any changes in our main.go file, we can go and just run devkit abs build and devkit abs run and see our changes. So I'm going to open up another window here. And I'm going to say devkit abs build and devkit abs run. All right, it looks like our ABS is now running, so we want to test it out. So we're going to do a call. This is very similar to something like Foundry, where you can call with arguments to an RPC endpoint. With devkit, we have devkit abs call. And what we want to pass in are going to be the type, or I would say the signature, as well as the arguments. So for the hello world, it looked like this, but for what we're doing now, it's just going to be a string, and it'll be something like Bitcoin. And if you go to the Oracle documentation for this repo, it actually has it laid out here. We're going to say devkit abs call, signature is string, and arguments is Bitcoin. And now we can just wait and see if this works. It looks like the task was successfully created, and what we're now waiting for is the verification to also be successful. And it looks like the task was completely executed successfully, and I should be able to go here into the logs and see the price of Bitcoin logged out. All right, that wraps it up. So what we've done here is that we've created a brand new DevKit project. We've tested it out, we've modified it, and we've deployed it to a local devnet. Now, we've done all of this in a very short amount of time. If you tried to do this from scratch, it's just quite a bit of work. So DevKit really abstracts away a lot of the work that you would need to do to experiment on EigenCloud. If you would like to learn more, definitely check out the documentation here in the README, and we're going to be adding a lot more to DevKit in the future. And if you have any questions, reach out to us. We're happy to help. I'm looking forward to seeing what you build.